This is a Pele Media podcast.
Welcome back to Goonies Minute, everybody. Goonies Minute is the fan podcast where we carefully explore the movie Goonies minute by minute. I am Brady.
And this is Chris.
And today we are going over minute number 48 of the Goonies. Chris, this is the first time that you and I have actually recorded from two different places.
I'm telling you, I am live from an undisclosed location around Baton Rouge. I can't exactly tell you my location.
That's right.
But wherever I go, whenever I'm there, I make sure that I have the ability to get into the minute.
You know what you sound like? You sound like one of those old commercials you would see on TV where somebody's like, I've had other coffee, but nothing beats the fine taste of community coffee. You know? No? Just me? In the previous minute, we saw the Goonies finally make their way down into the caves and presumably away from danger. Chunk was also able to make his way out of the restaurant in search of help. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. At minute 48, Bran steps up and announces that because he is the oldest, he is in charge. At that moment, Mikey steps up and starts to lead the way. They both ask Data if he has a light. Data is quick to present to them his latest invention, bully blinders. He pulls his jacket apart as two flashlights spring up from his sides. The gang is quite impressed until the light is too much for them. The batteries go out. As Data begins to explain to them why the batteries don't last so long, Mikey spots a light up ahead. He tells them that it might be a way out and to follow him. We cut to a frustrated Chunk running through the dark woods. He is complaining about how he loves the dark, but he hates nature. He finally makes his way up to the road and tries to flag down a car. It passes him up, but he jumps out into the middle of the road and begins to wave down a second car. It stops. He runs over to the dark driver's side window and starts to explain his story. And thus ends minute 48 of the Goonies. Alright, so we see that there's like jokes, you know, kind of some slapstick type stuff kind of starting to come back in. The movie's starting to feel a little less stressed because, you know, we're not in this incredibly gloomy location. Granted, we're now in a cave, we are underground, but the threat of another human being is not with us right now. And I think that actually takes some stress off. I think the Fratellis actually, to me anyway, pose a bigger threat than the world, like the earth caving in on them.
Whether or not they really do pose a bigger threat or not, basically the Goonies do not know what threats lie ahead, but they do know what threats lie behind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if that's a poetic way of saying it.
Yeah, a prettier way of saying what I was trying to say.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so we get to see another one of Data's inventions here, which is the bully blinders, which are the lights that kind of flip out from either side of him and are powerful enough to blind whoever's standing in front of him. And then, of course, the batteries go out, you know, very quickly. But
yeah, it's classic Data.
Yeah.
Something that's great, but also he's a kid, so he hasn't worked out all the issues yet, the technical issues.
Yeah, there's a few moments in this movie where it's primarily when Data's inventions are being used, where there's a sound effect that's just so out of place. And when these things spring out, there's that almost like Looney Tunes.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
And there's a couple other moments in it where, let's say when Jake gets punched, he slings his head back and forth.
Yeah,
that's
a classic Looney Tunes, which I loved.
Yeah, and it's so weird. I know this is a kid's movie, but that's almost too out of place, for me anyway.
It kind of reminds me of the Gesundheit.
Uh-huh.
You know, that was kind of one of those things that's a little bit out of place.
A little too silly. So it feels to me like they're setting something up with the bully blinders. It almost feels like the bully blinders are going to come back into play later. And they don't. I know that they're also just saying, okay,
but then again, how could they come back into play unless he had a battery charger? If you think about it. But you could be setting up for more of his little tricks.
Yeah, I think that's all they're really doing is saying this kid is an inventor. He's, you know, basically, hey, audience, expect this kind of stuff to come into play.
Did you notice how there is absolutely no music in this cave? Like, even when Data doesn't have his da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that, but there's no music at all. And maybe it's just because they want you to hear the dripping of the water and things like that.
That could be it.
They want to get you in the cave environment
Yeah.
more, you know, because they're kind of just introducing us to the cave?
Well, yeah, there could be that. It could be the fact that they want us to hear the sound effects, the audio of the cave. Or
Right.
it could also be that they're trying to get us to feel like we're in another place. Whereas if there were music, we would recognize too much that we're in a movie.
Right.
They want us to
like,
feel completely cut off and completely alienated. And go ahead.
this is the Goonies fantasy. I mean, it can be our fantasy, but we need to be able to feel like we're there. And like you said, if the music's playing, it's a fantasy like we're watching a movie. But if the music's not playing, then maybe we can be like we're with the Goonies.
Yeah.
And feeling what they're feeling,
yeah.
like you said. I don't know.
Yeah. A little more natural.
Right. Hey, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I wanted to go back to the first part of the minute where Brant says, "I'm the oldest, I'm in charge."
Okay.
And his voice is actually shaking when he's saying this. And I don't know if that was intentional or not. Remember, we've talked a lot about Brant being stuck in that strange place.
Yeah.
But Mikey, right away says, "Data, do you have a light?" And then Brant says, "I told you I was in charge." And then he asked Data, "Do you have a light?" I think that was intentional in the sense that that struggle that Brant is having, but also showing that Mikey is the one, even though he's younger. This is Mikey's adventure, Mikey's goal.
Yeah.
To go ahead and find this treasure and save
I think
the
this is a perfect example of that. I think you're absolutely right. And especially even down to the kind of shakiness in his voice. He's so unsure of himself.
Yeah, and it's one of those things I've never caught it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just learning so much more about these guys, being able to watch them so closely. It's really amazing.
Yeah, definitely. We see Mikey say "Hey, there's a light ahead of us. Let's go further." Do you think that he is? I think he might be doing one of two things here. One is that he could actually be saying, "Hey, look, there's a light. Maybe that'll get us the hell out of here."
Well, no. Wait, hold on, Brady.
Yeah, go ahead.
Make sure you're act. He said there's a light up ahead. Maybe it's a way out.
Yeah.
So if he says maybe it's a way out, I actually have a note of that. Why does he really want out? Because that would end it. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah,
I'm sorry if I'm throwing a monkey wrench in your.
You're actually saying exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
I think these kids do not want to go further into the mission, or at least, they're going to need more convincing. And Mikey's aware of that, so I think this is another instance of Mikey playing people to get what he wants. Like we've said, when he tried to play Mafratelli to let him go to the bathroom to go downstairs, and then he did it one other time. I can't remember in a previous minute, but I think this might be him saying "Hey guys, there's a light up ahead. Maybe it's a way out," meaning a way out and back into the world to safety. When in fact it's him getting them to go further into the caves.
That's a very good point.
So
I want to believe that you're right there.
Yeah.
Because, it would not be his character to look for a way out to get out of the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be his character. It would not jive with everything we've seen so far.
Yeah.
So I happen to believe that that's probably what that is.
Yeah. He's a smart kid. So my last note for this minute is it sucks to be Chunk.
I'm telling you, man, this guy. I mean, and I love he's trying to talk to himself, which I do often. I talk to myself. I talk to my animals like they're human also. But he's like, "I'm not afraid of the dark. I like the dark." But it's right at the end of the minute, it leads up to what next minute, the beginning of the next minute, is one of my favorite and creepy, scary, altogether scenes that I've always remembered since a kid, when he confronts Jake and Francis in the ORV in the middle of the highway.
That's great.
Which is just absolutely one of the best.
So, obviously we miss the fact that it's an ORV, one, because we might not not everybody is a car fanatic and knows exactly what kind of car it is as soon as they see it. And also we have the headlights blinding us. And then whenever Chunk runs up, the voice that you hear is, Jake Fratelli saying what seems to be the problem. And it's kind of low. You can't really tell.
So calm.
It's so calm, yeah, and it's really setting up for one of the biggest laughs in the movie. In fact, I think it's probably the funniest moment in the movie.
And and the thing is, there's no way, much less even a car expert with the trauma that they have seen in the last, throughout the day, really. There's no way in the world that even a car expert would be able to think, hey, this kind of looks like that ORV of those killers. There's just no way, and especially a kid, frantic. I mean, imagine the terror. We see it, as people watching a movie, but if you put yourself in there, think of the terror that these people are going through. Just trying to hold it together would be difficult right now, I would think.
Absolutely. Well, that is all that I have for this minute. How about you?
That's it for me.
Awesome. Well, like we said, the next minute's one of our favorites in the movie. So everybody definitely come back tomorrow and hear what we have to say all about that. That's going to be minute number 49 of the Goonies. So until then, this is Brady.
And this is Chris.
And we're here to remind you that Goonies
never say die.
Goonies Minute is a fan-supported podcast. If you like the show, then leave us a review on iTunes. You can find us at GooniesMinute.com, Facebook.com/GooniesMinute, Twitter.com/GooniesMinute, and at Instagram @GooniesMinute. You can contact us at GooniesMinute@gmail.com. You've been listening to a Pele Media podcast. For premium content and exclusive podcasts, visit us at Patreon.com/Pele Media. Check us out on Facebook at Facebook.com/Pele Media and follow us on Twitter at Twitter.com/Pele Media.